Hello, welcome back to my channel. So today we're actually going to be talking about Channel Orange. I don't know why, but I've been in sort of a nostalgic mood lately and sort of listening to the music that I used to love as a teenager and those albums that sort of shaped how I went to listen to and view music as I became an adult, and kind of like Electra Heart, Channel Orange is one of those albums for me. Also, it's getting colder and people get in their feelings when it gets colder, and Channel Orange is the perfect In Your Feelings album, but it's not so sad that you can't keep living your life after listening to it. And since it turns 10 years old this summer, I thought this would be the perfect time to revisit it and its impact. Prior to Channel Orange, Frank Ocean was a member of the collective Odd Future, of which Tyler the Creator, Sid, and Earl Sweatshirt were also members. Frank had previously released a mixtape called Nostalgia Ultra, which he leaked online after frustrations with Island Def Jam. He addressed this in a 2011 tweet saying, "I did this, not Island Def Jam. That's why you see no label logo on the artwork that I did. Guess it's my fault for trusting my dumbass lawyer and signing my career over to a failing company. Fuck Def Jam and any company that goes the length of signing a kid with dreams and talent with no intention of following through. Now back to my day. I want some oatmeal and toast, brunch swag." Nostalgia Ultra received critical acclaim and was noted for its unique surrealism, its melancholy, and its melodrama. Def Jam officially released 2 songs, one of which was Novocaine, as singles, and began talks for 2012 album. So Frank actually started working on Channel Orange with his producer Malay, who also helped him write for the album. Both Frank and Malay had actually been in the industry as songwriters before they started making music together. Malay said that Frank produced most of the album himself and recorded all of his own vocals himself, and that his contributions to Channel Orange were mostly just behind the scenes. Pharrell and Tyler the Creator also have producing credits on Channel Orange. Frank was mainly inspired by his love life for Channel Orange, which he called gloriously painful. Broadly speaking, Channel Orange is about the summer that Frank first fell in love, and the color orange reflects the intensity of his emotions at the time. It also perfectly captures the warmth of Los Angeles heat and the several warm places that Ocean references throughout the album. He wrote much of the album from other personal experiences or those of people close to him. His grandfather's experience with substance abuse inspired the song Crack Rock. For his debut, Frank wanted to experiment with song structure and include several different sonic elements. Frank has what's called synesthesia, which is a condition in which a person commonly experiences a sense through other senses. Common examples interpreting senses through color, for example, assigning colors to certain feelings or sounds. Ocean wanted to appeal to several different senses through sound, and in a sense make an album that sounds like the color orange and the feelings that Frank associates with it. The album sounds hazy and calm, yet simultaneously intense, much like the color orange. Channel Orange sounds modern yet nostalgic thanks to its electro-funk, soul, and jazz influences. Frank listened to older music from artists like Jimi Hendrix, Pink Floyd, and Stevie Wonder to help him set the tone for the album. In addition, the static sound of the television is a perfect motif to lean into the nostalgia of eras past and the perfect nod to the album's title. To begin promotions for Channel Orange, Frank released the lead single Thinkin Bout You. He initially co-wrote the song for Bridget Kelly's debut album, but eventually released his own studio version after putting a rough cut on Tumblr. The song is atmospheric yet immersing, and it's a perfect journey of the heartbreak of an unattainable relationship. The regret Frank feels when reflecting is tangible, and his falsetto almost sounds like his voice is cracking while asking a question he's afraid to hear the answer to. Throughout the song, Ocean tries to convince us and himself that he isn't hurt by his partner, and with a few white lies sprinkled in, until he finally breaks and admits the truth. Pitchfork called Thinkin Bout You bewitching and praised the song for being a crossover hit. Jordan Sargent of Pitchfork said, "This isn't a tale of a bedroom triumph, instead it's a beguiling sketch of a relationship just out of his reach." Like many of his songs, the magnetism of Thinkin Bout You lies not in the details, but in the lack thereof. Thinkin Bout You peaked at number 32 on the Hot 100. The song was also popular across social media, especially on Tumblr, where Ocean had initially uploaded the song. Thinkin Bout You has since been certified platinum and was nominated for Record of the Year at the 2013 Grammys. The song is also an R&B classic for an entire generation. So just before Channel Orange's release, Frank did pen an open letter on Tumblr addressing speculations about his sexuality. At a listening party, some journalists and listeners alike seemed to notice that some of the lyrics in Frank's songs implied the fact that he had had relationships in the past with men. In this open letter on Tumblr, Frank didn't put a label on his sexuality, but he did confirm that in fact his first love was at 19 years old and it was with a man. Frank detailed the story of a relationship that unfolded over a summer and sadly ended there. Frank spoke about it in an accepting manner, it having been 5 years since, but the painful memories of the experience are still captured so well. He expressed that he was grateful for his first love and the experience and felt freer to have shared it. This was an unprecedented move to make back in 2012, just before the release of an anticipated album, especially on a major label. At the time, and even now, very few famous male artists have been open about their queerness, especially in R&B and hip-hop. Channel Orange debuted at number 2 on the Hot 200. It was actually released a week before the announced date to prevent it from being leaked on the internet. Channel Orange was praised for its unconventional style, such as including non-musical elements and ambient noise in the album. Frank sings, raps, and talks throughout Channel Orange, and uses lyrics that are both poetic and matter-of-fact. Vice gave Channel Orange an A+, and called it an album that provoked an immediate reaction but doesn't force itself. The review puts it perfectly and says Frank Ocean doesn't have to scream to get his points across because he knows we're listening. Vice also said that Channel Orange is full of moments both small and large. Pitchfork rated Channel Orange a 9.5 out of 10 and said with the album, Ocean established himself as one of the generation's best songwriters. They praised his ability to make the record sound so universally human, saying his lofty gaze is powerful, but not all-powerful. The review also talks about the internet's influence on the work, saying it spurred on a wave of self-reflection in music, and that Channel Orange is a product of that. Across the board, Channel Orange received critical acclaim. Metacritic rated it a 92 out of 100. Ocean was complimented on how beautifully he could pour his heart into his song, and how the music was experimental yet familiar, and still managed to establish a distinct voice for him. Though we're aware we're viewing the experiences from Frank's lens, he makes it almost effortless for us to put ourselves in his shoes, and it gives the album a therapeutic and cathartic quality. I can think of few, if any, debut albums that are better than Channel Orange. It's since been ranked by Billboard as the 3rd best album of the 2010s, just behind Lemonade and My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Channel Orange won the 2013 Grammy for Best Urban Contemporary Album and won that year's GLAAD Award for Outstanding Music Artist as well as International Male Artist at the Brit Awards. Super Rich Kids is my favorite song on Channel Orange. It never feels like a 5-minute song to me because it's more like a story. The song follows the speaker through a day of excess and irresponsibility and having everything yet feeling nothing. The song is laid back and doesn't rush itself and has the perfect lazy LA vibe to it, which juxtaposes the sadness and brokenness in the lyrics. Super Rich Kids has one of the smartest and most creative song interpolations in it. The song interpolates Mary J. Blige's Real Love, but it's so transformed and well suited to the theme of the song, it could easily go unnoticed. The song also features Frank's fellow Odd Future member Earl Sweatshirt, who raps in the song. The mindless chatter in the background of Super Rich Kids makes the lyrics sound like a cry for help that will inevitably go unnoticed. Super Rich Kids came out at the perfect time. It was included on the soundtrack for The Bling Ring, and it almost feels like the song was written for the film. The early 2010s were a time for maximalism both in music and fashion. Celebrities were able to flaunt their wealth in excess thanks to social media, which by 2012 was still becoming fairly normalized. In an article celebrating Channel Orange's 10-year anniversary, Rolling Stone actually calls Channel Orange a touchstone for a cohort born into the ethics of social media. I also think this makes the television motif, which is included at the end of Super Rich Kids, doubly valuable. Television is one of the most representative emblems of consumerism and one of the biggest tools used to promote it. But thanks to social media, there's also a comforting and nostalgic aspect of television, and it seems so simple in the face of the mega consumption shown to us because of social media. Pyramid sounds like 3 or 4 different songs in one, but it's one idea expressed across several stories and musical arrangements. Frank plays with time and tempo to tell us 3 different parallel stories, all representing Black women and the disrespect they faced throughout time. He talks of Cleopatra, Delilah, and a stripper by the name of Cleopatra. The song is disco, funk, R&B, and electropop, and trap all in one. Despite the mostly up-tempo beats in the song, it's evident through the desperation in Frank's voice that the song isn't happy or celebratory. Halfway through Pyramids, Frank has a sobering moment in which he talks about Cleopatra getting ready to go to the strip club, also called Pyramids. The song winds down into R&B and trap, and the experience is less glorified as it's a harsh necessity. Frank also slides into the character of a pimp who has no guilt and almost seems proud of profiting off of Cleopatra. The song ends so slowly that it leaves you empty inside and almost makes you feel guilty for vibing and jamming earlier in the beginning of the song. You don't even really get enough time to sit with the sadness and emptiness that you're left with after listening to Pyramids before Lost comes on. And Lost is one of the more funkier, upbeat songs on the album, and I think it perfectly captures the darker subject matter in the song. Lost is about a young woman who is transporting drugs for her man, and she's so caught up in the glitz and glamour and the money that comes with it that she's not necessarily thinking about the repercussions of her actions. And just like with the song, since it's so upbeat and catchy, we're lost in the heat and the thrill of it all, just like the lady in the song. Channel Orange is observant of the mundane and makes every emotion you think while trying to numb your mind with music come to life. The fact that Channel Orange has no distinct theme helps it feel cohesive, though every song on the album is unique. It almost feels like the human experiences the theme, especially growing up and experiencing love and loss. Even in songs where Frank questions things, like in Bad Religion and in Pink Matter, it's in a way that you feel confident knowing you're not the only one worrying about these existential questions. When I first heard Frank use Majin Buu as a comparison to brain matter, I was all in. In Pink Matter, when he says, "I'll take pleasure over matter," that's such a poignant statement. A lot of us can relate to the just reaching a point where you're so tired of trying to make sense of things, you just give up. I feel like including Andre 3000 on a psychedelic funk song about the brain is a genius choice. By the end of Pink Matter, you can barely even remember what it's about, and you're just bobbing your head to the song, also choosing pleasure over matter. In Bad Religion, Frank likens the way he clings to an unrequited love to the way many fall to their knees to make prayers that fall on their gods' deaf ears. It's interesting to think of each song on Channel Orange like a different TV episode or a different show, with a different story and different experience coming with each. The songs are also overproduced and multi-layered, which forces you to be entertained by them, much like a TV show. Also similar to a TV show, I think some of the darker themes and subject matter in these songs are kind of lost in the production, unless you pay attention to them closely and listen to the lyrics. I feel this way about Pyramids, about Lost, and about Monks. I don't know what to make of this, but the album also makes you hyper aware that you're consuming something. The first and last entries on Channel Orange, called Start and End, are like bookends, immersing you into the experience and then quite literally ejecting you from it. I feel like this could have easily been seen as corny if Frank had over-anticipated just how immersive the album is, but he didn't. I think it's cool to be so artistically transparent about the fact that the experience created for the listener is manufactured, but having confidence in the fact that they'll still buy it because they're feeling genuine emotions. Channel Orange was hailed as an instant classic and said to be timeless because it existed in its own timeline. The album is a masterclass in creating a kaleidoscopic masterpiece, offering versatility but with a clear vision. Ocean was praised for his songwriting that was colorful and tragic, complex and honest, and he was likened to similar R&B forces at the time like Miguel and The Weeknd. A large subgenre of indie pop at the time tapped into the melancholy and angst felt by a lot of young adults. Still, the music is weird and new and experimental, and seems like the work of a mind trying to sort through several emotions at once. Frank Ocean actually inspired the music of several different artists like Omar Apollo, Steve Lacy, and Kevin Abstract. Kevin Abstract was also inspired by Odd Future to start his own music collective, Brockhampton. Kevin Abstract is also an openly gay rapper who came out at the age of 16 in one of his songs. He said that he felt like he didn't have a lot of representation growing up as a young queer black boy. Kevin said that Frank Ocean's coming out letter was just as inspirational to him as his music. This helped Abstract realize that he too could become a successful musician while being openly himself. Kevin Abstract has said both in his interviews and in his music that he'll continue to discuss his sexuality in his music and hopefully provide for others a representation that he longed for a while. One of Channel Orange's best qualities is its method of world building, which became a common trait in projects of a similar lane. This world building steeps the songs in imagination, where the emotions depicted are the most saturated versions of themselves and the most dramatic and intensely felt. The lyrics are precise and detailed enough to paint a picture, yet vague enough for every listener to project themselves onto. The production typically supports this and creates a song that even sounds like a different world or dream, or sounds like one big production. Insider claims the genre-bending quality of Channel Orange can be felt in Billie Eilish's debut album, as well as Sweetener, Melodrama, and Igor. However, the similarities aren't necessarily in sound, but in feel. I can't describe it well, but there's something about the angsty and vulnerable way that Frank writes that seems like it's permeated through a lot of the projects that came after Channel Orange. As someone who knows Melodrama front to back, I can see that comparison easily. The songs are cinematic and layered, and each song delivers emotions in intense forms, be it grief, desperation, sentimentality, or relief. Like Channel Orange with melodrama, we see all that comes with a crumbling relationship, the reflection, the self-doubt, and the memory of times when we thought our first love would last forever. Lorde actually said that her song The Louvre was directly inspired by Frank Ocean. In The Louvre, Lorde sings of a relationship she knows is futile, but tries to convince herself it might last. She mentions the rush of new love, from overanalyzing text messages to ignoring friends, behaviors that are self-destructive but feel like the right choice when you're caught up in the moment. The song is dramatic, and Lorde plays several different roles in her song, from a chorus of voices celebrating new love to the voice in the back of her mind questioning things. I feel like melodrama is more reminiscent of Frank Ocean than Lorde's debut album Pure Heroine, and I think that it's in part because melodrama is also inspired by the end of a relationship as well as coming into early adulthood. Where Channel Orange captures the warm, orange, hazy tones of a relationship, I feel like melodrama captures the more isolating, sad, cooler tones like the blues and purples of a relationship and the end of it. As far as the instrumentation, Lorde has cited Frank's sophomore album Blonde as a big inspiration, but the lyrics to me are more reminiscent of Channel Orange. In a Complex interview with Umi, Joyce Rice, and Baby Rose, they all cited the honesty of Channel Orange as influencing their songwriting. Frank's writing inspired them to put more of themselves in the music and create art directly from their own experiences. Complex also claims that SZA's debut album Control is a prime example of an album influenced by Channel Orange. Like Channel Orange, Control excels in story-like lyricism and includes different sound elements like voicemails. The album is clearly R&B, but experiments with other genres like hip-hop and neo-soul, both of which SZA is no stranger to. The writing in Control lays SZA's thoughts and emotions bare, good or bad. The lyrics are full of witty metaphor when needed, but are straightforward at their more vulnerable parts, similar to Channel Orange. Control is an escape, yet it feels familiar, and like Channel Orange, many have cited it as representative of their early adulthood. This makes sense as Frank Ocean and SZA are friends, and she cited him as a musical inspiration of hers. Frank Ocean's music has made an incredible impact on many of his queer listeners. In an article celebrating the 10-year anniversary of Thinkin Bout You, Joshua Mackey talks about what the song meant for him as a gay man navigating early adulthood. Mackey said the song made him reflect on his sexuality more than any previous work of art had done. He said Frank provided tangible representation where there had previously been very little, and it helped him navigate his identity and come into himself. Thinkin Bout You came out at a time where gay marriage wasn't even legal in every state, and Mackey said the song helped him visualize what life could possibly be like. It was especially groundbreaking to see an openly queer man in the R&B and to an extent hip-hop spaces, both of which have been rampant in their homophobia. Mackey said, "When I hear Ocean melodically asking the man he loves if he thinks about a future between them, I remember a black queer boy who wouldn't dare think so far ahead about the man he loved. I see a boy who needed Ocean's words to help him make sense of change, stop fixing what wasn't broken, and make the dream of who he could be a reality." He also praised Ocean for being one of the earliest examples of black queer boy joy, something we see so little of, especially back in 2012. Just browsing through pop heads and hip hop heads on my own, I've seen several posts about how important it was for many to have music that depicted queerness. Small strides are being made in television shows, and it was nice to see the same thing being done in music, more specifically in R&B and in hip hop to a lesser scale. Several people have said that Channel Orange was instrumental to their journey of self-acceptance and felt it was necessary queer representation. A 2015 article from The Fader reflected on the importance of the manner in which Ocean came out. It wasn't orchestrated with the help of mainstream media the way it had been with Ellen DeGeneres and Caitlyn Jenner. Instead, Frank took complete control of his own narrative, writing and uploading a statement in his own words and without the media's spin on it. He was able to tell as much as he wanted and wasn't prodded in an interview and wasn't forced to mince words either. In the years since the letter, Ocean hasn't become any less vague about his sexuality, as he still hasn't labeled it and has expressed disinterest in being defined by it. Channel Orange achieves this. While it provides necessary representation of queer relationships, the album is also simply great music and anyone of any orientation can appreciate it. Still, I don't want to downplay its impact on helping break down stigmas around gender and sexuality, especially in R&B and hip-hop. Other than Kevin Abstract, Lil Nas X is another example of a queer artist impacted by Frank Ocean. He said several times that Frank helped pave the way and that his music shaped his life. Lil Nas was finally able to meet his idol at the Met Gala, which he said was an honor, and Frank was one of the celebrities he'd been most excited to meet. In an interview with Lil Nas X, Kevin Abstract asked him directly if he thought he'd be able to be as open about himself without the presence of artists like Frank. Lil Nas responded that it would have been scary to grow up without figures like Frank and Kevin. He went on to say, "I feel like for everybody, no matter who the artist is, there's always some person that in some way made them feel slightly more okay with doing something and being themselves, you know. That's what you guys did for me." Similar to Frank Ocean, Lil Nas X came out after the popularity of his hit song, Old Town Road. Also similar, he did so through social media and a series of tweets as well as a letter he wrote to his younger self. In the interviews following his coming out, Lil Nas cited Frank Ocean and Tyler the Creator as artists who helped him feel comfortable coming out. In the years since, we've seen Lil Nas X become more and more unapologetically himself, and he's become a queer icon in his own right. I don't think any of these articles or perspectives are acting as if Frank was the first or only queer artist of his time, but I do think that they're saying that him being an openly queer black man in a genre that normalized homophobia and the way he used social media to come out on his own terms were both revolutionary. Though Frank wasn't the first to come out, he was one of the first to do so intimately via social media, which sounds ironic, I know, which meant a lot to a generation who in part looked to social media to shape their own identities. Frank was in a position where coming out could have potentially derailed his major label debut record, but thankfully it didn't. If anything, it exalted Channel Orange in the minds of LGBTQ youth, especially Black LGBTQ youth. For me, Channel Orange is one of those albums that I can still listen to 10 years later and feel the same feelings that I did when it came out when I was a teenager. And not necessarily in an immature way, but in a these are human feelings sort of way. I've definitely had a lot more life experience in the past 10 years, but I don't think that necessarily changes how I view the album. Instead, I think it just makes me feel my feelings towards Channel Orange just a little bit more intensely. Each time I listen to the songs on the album, they feel as poignant as they did the first time I heard them, and each time I listen to Channel Orange, it's just an album that I feel seen by, like I'm listening and it just feels like someone gets my emotions. Still, 10 years later, Channel Orange is being praised and celebrated. I really appreciate the fact that it's an album that was considered a work of genius even when it came out, and that people aren't 10 years after the fact just realizing that Channel Orange is a masterpiece. Over the years, several music publications have written about the impact of Channel Orange on R&B and indie pop. And likewise, several fans have always talked about how Channel Orange is an album that holds a special place in their hearts, and myself included. Down in the comments, be sure to let me know your favorite songs on Channel Orange and your thoughts on the album in general. Honestly, I'm super glad that Frank Ocean gave us more music, but I think this album was so impactful that he really could have did a Lauryn Hill and dropped Channel Orange and never released another album, and I think I would have been satisfied. But I mean, I am glad that he gave us Blonde because I do love that album as well. As always, thank you dolls so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe so that you can stick around for more. If you want to follow me on Twitter so you can keep up with me there, be sure to do that as well, and I'll see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.